Hi, my name is Cliff Schmucker. I started skydiving in 1973. I was a freshman in college, University of Cincinnati in Ohio, and never flown in an airplane, never really considered skydiving, never really knew anything about it, but freshman year there's the various activities fairs, different organizations, clubs, this sort of thing, and walking around in the fall, and it's like, well, here's some people, pictures of skydiving and whatever, and some equipment there, and here's sign up here, and they had a 16 millimeter film going. It was Masters of the Sky, actually, as it turns out, and didn't really think that much about it. And a couple weeks later, got a phone call on a Saturday morning. Well, you ready to go to the airport? I'm like, well, oh, yeah, sure, why not? And went and trained in Waynesville, Ohio, and made the first jump. Scared me so much, it's like, well, I'm going to do this again because it can't be that, there's people doing this, I'm seeing them do it, so it's like, well, let's try it again, next week, and made a few more jumps, and 23 jumps later, had actually landed in the airplane. It was too cloudy to jump or something, and I realized, jumping out is really better than landing in airplanes, so, here we are almost, well, it's actually 39 years ago I made my first jump now, so got involved with Steve Stewart in manufacturing, designing equipment, and we formed a company originally called Stewart Systems, and then we incorporated under SSK Industries, and it's just, hobby and passion turned into a career slowly over the years, and I was fortunate enough to be able to combine skydiving with my background in electrical engineering, and 20-some years ago hooked up with Helmut Cloth, founder of AirTech in the Cyprus over in Germany, and we've been working with that now for quite a while, and it's all turned out good. We were able to introduce a version of the Cypress called the Military Cypress to US DoD, and ended up replacing a lot of mechanical hardware, things like this that were causing them issues. And I like to tell people, the good news is that every free fall parachute that US DoD owns now has a military Cypress in it. Well, that's also the bad news. Sales are down now, but it's really been great, working with the military guys, the special ops guys, and these are really some. They're tough guys. They're great to work with, and we were, able during the testing phases of the military Cypress, out on some interesting places. There's a place in Marana here, and then of course out at Yuma, involved in some of the test jumps and things like this, and got to spend a lot of time with them, and a lot of contacts we still have today and work with, and it's been very, very rewarding working with the special operations community. But at the same time, it's also great working with skydivers, and I've got close to 3,000 jumps now, but when my younger son started jumping a few years ago, that kind of got me revitalized in it again, and I think in the past couple of years I've probably made more jumps than in the previous 15, so kind of getting back into it, jumping smaller, faster canopies now, and still being fairly conservative. But I'm really having a great time, and starting to work with. Got my instructor rating back again, so I could, coach some of the younger jumpers, and not doing tandem anymore. I figured, hey, I've been there, done that. Don't need to do that anymore. But I feel strongly that we need to work with the younger jumpers. It's the only way we're going to get staff and people, to keep this sport alive and growing. And I think there's a great amount of opportunity out there for the sport, for the industry, and surprisingly enough, when money seems to be tight and the economy down and things like this, you look around and people are still skydiving, and I think they're just focusing their money and their efforts toward what they really want to do, like to do, where their passion is, And from my opinion, the sport is alive and well. And one of the other things I've had the privilege of doing over the years is our involvement in the Parachute Industry Association, and there was an opportunity almost 20 years ago. I was originally chaired a couple of the committees, and then became vice president of the organization, and then all at once I was president of the organization. And I'm now becoming a strong proponent of term limitations, because I think next year will be my 20th year as PIA president, so it's time to turn it over to someone else. But it's been a great opportunity. Also, working with I'm a trustee with the National Skydiving Museum, and it's great group of people, and it's also given me the opportunity to meet some of the people that I never really met early on in my skydiving career, because starting in the early 70s, I sort of missed that first wave of people, and it's just been great opportunity getting to meet and know some of the people that I never had a chance to early on.
When you first started skydiving in the 70s, did they have automatic activation devices? And can you talk, you work with the Arctic Cypress quite a bit?
I'm sorry?
You work with the Cypress?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Can you explain maybe to somebody at the museum that's here right now watching this, and explain to them what an automatic activation device is and how they were developed over the course of the history and
Sure. Sure. AEDs, or automatic activation devices, been around for really quite a while. They were originally called AODs, automatic opening devices, but because of liability and this sort of thing, some smart person probably about 30 years ago decided it should be an AAD, because what it does, it activates the reserve container. If a skydiver for some reason is still falling at a speed greater than a certain set limit at below what is considered an altitude that should already be open at, the AAD activates the what should be starting the deployment sequence. And I have to choose my words carefully here because of a lot of liability issues and so on. But the whole purpose is it's a backup device. If for whatever reason a skydiver is unable to deploy his parachute, is knocked unconscious, whatever, hopefully the AAD will be able to step in and make things turn out to be a better day. And probably a good analogy is similar to the airbag in your car. The airbag is there, you don't intend on using it. If for some reason you're headed toward a bridge abutment, you stand on the brakes and take care of things on your own. But if for whatever reason you don't, hopefully the airbag will be there to turn out to be better. You don't depend on it. You don't depend on an AAD. If AADs were totally foolproof or 100%, I would say eliminate the reserve ripcord handle, because reserve ripcord handles have killed skydivers just because somehow it initiated a reserve deployment prematurely. But AADs are a backup device. It's been very rewarding speaking to people after a situation where the AAD stepped in and made things a better day for them. And every now and then we get that phone call on a Monday morning. It's like, dude, you saved my life yesterday, and it's just makes it all the work and everything that takes very rewarding. As far as your question about when I started jumping, the AAD that was being used at the drop zone I started at the time, of course we were jumping, military surplus stuff, chest-mounted reserves and all that, was an SE Sentinel, and turn, adjust, whatever. But they I've seen them in action. They for the technology and where things were at the time. Steve Snyder, who invented the thing, fantastic job. And I've always felt that whether it's a Sentinel or an FXC 12,000 or a Cap 3 or whatever, some of the stuff that's out there, as long as you use them within their operating limitations, they really did pretty good. And one of the advantages of the modern electronic AED like the Cypress is its operating limitations are a lot more friendly, especially for an experienced skydiver. And what Helmut Cloth managed to do is, after he was witnessed his best friend have a tragic accident over 25 years ago, he just took it upon himself to come up with an AED that skydivers would embrace and use, because back in the 70s, AEDs were for students. And if you had an AED as an experienced jumper, no one would jump with you, and certainly no one would do RW with you, because everyone was afraid of a premature canopy deployment, which depending on the situation is an extremely dangerous one. But the success of the Cypress and skydivers embracing it now, if you're not using a modern electronic AED, people kind of go, ooh, and so it's turned around totally 180 degrees. And back on the military side of things, the best salesmen we had were the military guys who were sport jumpers, because they all owned a Cypress in their personal rig, and they'd go back to work on Monday and be telling their their bosses, their higher ups and so on, hey, there's better technology, there's better stuff out there, and I own one of them. And there were some various issues with the 2 or 3 military AEDs that were in use in the 10, 15 year ago time frame, and they said, hey, there's better stuff out there. The Golden Knights had a situation. They started jumping civilian, what we call expert Cypress, and then of course other branches of the military started looking into well, gee, can we use this stuff too? And the civilian Cypress really isn't appropriate for what a lot of the military guys are doing. They're leaving, maybe Fort Bragg and flying halfway around the world and jumping into some place where they're maybe doesn't even determine when they leave the ground, pressurized aircraft. So that's the main reason for the specialized military version, because it allows a special ops jumper to, jump anywhere, anytime from any aircraft without the things that are convenience features for a sport jumper, but would be, are limiting in the military environment. So
they can basically high-tech program their own.
Yeah, it's what they're doing is they're setting the AED to the air pressure of their intended drop zone, and same thing now with the military Audi track, which is a military version of the Larson and Bruce Audi track, which we've also in the process of introducing to the U.S. Government right now. And by plugging in the, programming in the air pressure at the ground of your intended drop zone, when you land, your altimeter says 0, instead of having to try to figure out, gee, do I need to adjust my altimeter, so many thousand feet up or down, inside the airplane on jump runs. So, because, for a military special ops jumper, the parachute jump, I mean, to us, that's the big deal. But to them, it's transportation. The parachute jump is just getting them to where they need to start their real mission. And so it's like I said, my hat's off to these guys. They're tough guys, and they're doing a great job.
If somebody was at the museum right now, say they're watching this, and they're thinking about making a skydive after going through the museum, what would you say to them?
Well, obviously there's a number of ways to make skydives now. The majority of people, probably are making tandem jumps now. Some people, go with one of the other methods, accelerated free fall, and there's even some people still out there, doing static line. But, find, the local drop zone, go to USPA's website. They have the list of the group member drop zones in the area. Go visit the drop zone, talk to the people, and get an idea what it's about. Maybe spend an afternoon, watching the skydiving operation or whatever, and then you'll be back out the next day or the next weekend, making the jump for yourself. And I just always encourage people, make more than one. You know, because that first one is so, at least in my experience, is so shocking and just, you know, so much information overload, you really don't get to enjoy it, you know, till that second one or the third one and on and on and on, because it just, you know, in my experience, it just keeps getting better. And, you know, a few thousand jumps later, I'm still having a blast. You know, it's, you know, we're doing it for fun. It's a great deal. And there's, you know, certainly nothing like it. You know, if you're at all, you know, adrenaline junkie, you know, there's nothing like it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sure thing. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yep.
Now, before you go, you're still attached to my microphone.
Yes.